Hello. Hello, Internet. Happy Monday. Hello, Mr. Ed Charbeneau. How are you?
Hello, my friend. Our is this what's the meetup group again? This is the Columbus meetup group.
Yes, yes, sir. Well, you
Good
came to
old,
Columbus and you didn't know where you were coming?
good old
It's,
Columbus, Ohio.
yeah.
I
I think
I,
you've
I
been
missed the
there
drive.
a few times. Yeah.
I missed the drive. There's some good barbecue on the way there.
Yeah. Anyways, so folks, welcome back to Code It Live. I'm actually your host for the days. I'm Sam, and my phone's ringing, but Ed's our speaker, and this is a slightly different type of a stream. You most likely see me and Ed and Alyssa and TJ all throughout the week, but this is actually a user group meeting, so there's a little bit of more formality to this, right? But we're going to go an hour-ish, and talk about all things Blazor, because Mr. Ed Charbeneau is here, and we got nothing else but Blazor to talk about. So welcome, folks. If you are joining us because you're part of the user group, hello, people. It's at least good to see you in the chat room. Hopefully someday we get to hang out in person. We're trying to figure out, Ed, like what the user groups look like as we slowly crawl back to normalcy. So I think for now we are virtual. So we meet in Columbus at the improving offices, but we haven't in the last year and a half. It's been all virtual, and it's been good actually to just kind of hang out and learn and then still get together. This is the time, like before the user group meeting starts, where we have pizza. So we try as a family to have pizza on these third Mondays, and it doesn't work every time, but like today, I think after this, I do have pizza, a little bit of homemade pizza. So let's get started. Before we hand you over to Ed, let me go over some housekeeping. So let me move my screens around. And hang on, if I can share my other screen.
I'm going to see if I can fix the lighting back here while you do that, Sam.
Go for it. And let's see, where is stuff? There it is. Oh no, my other machine is starting to restart. No, thank you, Windows. Don't want you to restart right now. Okay, so while Ed is fixing up his lighting, welcome one and all to the Columbus App Dev user group. With all of you, hopefully you're being safe and healthy and productive. This is us. This is where you can find us online. We are the Columbus App Dev user group. We have a website. We have a Meetup group. We have a Twitter handle, and we meet right here, third Mondays online, or if we were in a normal world in Columbus, Ohio, in the eastern area, but hey, at least we get to hang out here. These are some of our sponsors who kind of help us keep doing what we're doing. And we can't give away physical swag yet, but at least we can do some digital stuff. So a big thank you to all of them. We also do a little roundup of some of the things that are going on around us, or things that are coming up, maybe little regional things. So this is our sister user group, the Columbus.NET user group, and looks like they're talking Azure serverless functions this month. They meet fourth Thursday of each month, while we meet third Mondays, and there are some weeks where both of those things are on the same week. So they'll be on this Thursday, actually, talking about Azure serverless. So check them out. Now, things are slowly kind of crawling back to normalcy here. Some events are going full on in person, some are hybrid, some are still online. So I'm just trying to list out some of the things that are coming up. So that conference, this is in Wisconsin Dells. They are starting up a few other things around the country, but they should be on in person in July, I believe, later half of July. So that should be fun to go and attend. Codepalooza, this is actually in Ed's hometown in Louisville, Kentucky. They are actually fully online, just a full-on remote, not even hybrid. So that's coming up in August. And the call for speakers for both of these two is done. Okay, hang on, let me see. Ed, are you trying to tell me something?
Yeah, I just noticed we don't have a very high count here. I was wondering if the announcement went out that we're live. And we've
I am
got
not sure.
someone in chat that's wondering if the meetup is here or if it's on Teams.
Yeah. Okay, so once Ed starts talking, I will double check if the tweet went out. But Noel Stiglitz, if I'm saying that right. So this is the formal user group talk. So Ed's here to talk about Blazor, and this is going to go on for an hour. And then for those of you who just want to, just relax a little bit off camera or off the internet, we will have the Teams call. That's coming up at like 7 Eastern. So yes, both are happening. This is the formal user group talk, and then we will hang out with Ed, hopefully, at 7 after he's done. Okay. We have Code Blazor coming up in August, and then let's see, where's my mouse pointer? KCBC is back. These are some of my favorite regional conferences to go to. This is in Kansas City, not in Kansas, Missouri, but they are back in September, and I believe this is fully in person, not hybrid. We have Tech Bash also coming up. This is in late October. Kind of the same idea. Hey, Noel. Yeah, thank you. And hopefully we'll see you there, Noel. I know like Doug and a few other folks just like to hang out in teams, like what we do at the user group where we are just done with our talk. We play some ping pong, we play some board games. At least we get to see each other's faces, right? So Tech Bash is happening late October. And again, this is kind of like Code Mash at a water park in the Kalahari. So go check them out if you want. And then Visual Studio Live, this is a set of folks that we partner with. So if you are interested in going to like a bigger show and you can get some vacation from your employer, then they give us a big discount just being a part of the user group. And their big show is coming up in November. This is in Orlando. I actually just did Dev Intersection, which is another show that's also happened in Orlando and then in Vegas. But this one is their biggest VS Live show. It combines like 4 or 5 different conferences all into one. So 5 days of a lot of content. So that's coming up in November. All right, so next month, we have Sean Wildermuth coming on. And I haven't exactly confirmed the topic. He said something Vue, and he's awesome. He's amazing. So it'll be something amazing with Vue. I don't know exactly what, but we'll find out. But that's coming up in July, 3rd Mondays. And today's June. Well, it is June, but 3rd Monday in June, which means we have Mr. Ed Charbeneau to talk to us about all things Blazor, right? So with that, Ed, I'm going to stop and let you speak. So I'm going to stop the share, and we're looking at your desktop here.
Yep, so this is going to be a pretty demo-heavy session. And the idea here is to show one of the best features of Blazor off, and that is its component model. So hopefully you know a little bit about Blazor. If you don't, it won't be too far down the rabbit hole for you to follow along. But I'm going to build some components live to show you just how easy it is to work with components in Blazor and why I enjoy working with it. Let's see, we've got too many screens here. I can't get my slides to advance, and it won't give me. There it goes. Windows is not behaving well. I'm a developer advocate. I work with Sam on the progress team as a principal, this is senior, but principal developer advocate. I have a free Blazor ebook out there called the A Beginner's Guide. I can give you a link to that at the end, so you can go download that. You can find me on Twitter by my name and on Twitch as well, and of course on the Code It Live channel too. But today we're going to talk about the Blazor component architecture and what makes it so easy. First of all, you can see that there's just 3 main pieces that make up a Blazor component. So there is the directives. These are compiler directives that give the component features that make it stand out, do extra things. Like, for example, here we've got a page directive. The page directive gives the component the ability to be routed. So we have client-side routing, and that is handled through one of the directives. You'll see other directives used as I go along here. I use directives for dependency injection, using statements, and things like that. And the next section down is our markup. And this is HTML, Java, or HTML, Razor, and other Razor components. And these make up the markup that is rendered when the component is rendered in the browser. And finally, we have our logic section. The logic section binds together different things in the markup, displays holds the values that are displayed in the markup, and binds things like on-click events, and just generally any business logic that happens in the component itself can happen in this block. It can also be separated out into a code behind file, which I plan to show you later on in the talk. But you'll find all the component logic here and the markup above, the directives at the top, and that's pretty much the architecture of a Blazor component. So it's pretty simple stuff when you look at it on the surface. Now, it gets a little bit more complex as we go along, but still those three main building blocks are all you need to worry about. So let's take a look at building a component. We'll start adding some parameters to it. But first of all, let's just go into a basic Blazor application, pull up the index page, and we've got a blank page with a couple directives at the top. The first directive I have is a page directive that gives it some routing. I also have a using statement here to bring my services into scope. And I have an inject statement to bring in some dependency injection, which has a service so I can pull in some mock logging data. We'll use that later on in the talk. We're not going to worry about that just yet. First of all, let's just write some basic HTML because Blazor works off of HTML standards. So any HTML is valid in Blazor. So we'll start off with a div, and we're going to build an alert box component. So we'll give it a class, and we'll start off with a little bootstrap. So we'll say alert danger, and we'll go ahead and open that div tag up, and then we'll use this for a span here. We'll put some static content in the middle. And this isn't quite a component yet. This is just some HTML that is within our index component here.
Hey, Ed, I think I may have mentioned before we were going live, I'm going to be your annoying person who just hangs out and asks dumb questions.
That's perfectly fine, Sam.
Where did you get Bootstrap?
So Bootstrap comes as part of the Blazor template.
So it just drops it in there locally, or are you getting it from CDNs?
It is just added locally. There's no CDN for this one. If I look under www in my CSS, you can see a Bootstrap folder, and they give you the minified Bootstrap just out of the box. Now, you don't have to keep it, and it won't be updated because, like you said, there's no CDN, there's no like package manager, none of that stuff. It's just there for you to use if you want to use it.
Gotcha.
So there by default, and we're going to actually override it later, and we won't be actually using the Bootstrap because I'm going to show off something called Css Isolation in Blazor, and it will take precedence over the alert CSS that is in that Bootstrap file. And also, let me know if this is zoomed in far enough. I can zoom this in a little bit more if it needs to be bumped up a bit.
No, I see it fine.
All right. So we've got this alert, and it's just static HTML right now. It's inside of the index component, but I want to make something that I can reuse. What I want to be able to do is come in here and just say something like this, alert, and then put some custom content here, like that. And I also might want to have different styles of alert box that I can use, not just the standard red danger alert box. So we're going to look at ways to expand that. And this window keeps popping up as I make changes. We're going to actually shift over to .NET 6 and use one of the new features so that stops happening. So what I want to do is let this finish doing whatever it's doing in the background. There we go. And I'm going to jump over to the command line for just a second. If I can get the right prompt to come up. Here we go. And I'm going to open a terminal. And in my terminal in .NET 6, we have the ability to do hot reloading. So I'm going to say .NET watch on the command line. And this is going to run the application in a watch mode. So if any changes happen to the application, it is going to reload the content in the browser. So see where you have static content right here. I'm going to come over here and just put in some more text. Let's close this browser or file explorer down. And then I'm going to hit save. And when I hit save, notice it's just updating that in real time. So if I were to come over here and say alert info and hit save, see how quick that responds and updates that content? That's because when I ran .NET Watch, you can see down here with this preview of .NET, we have hot reloading enabled. So that's a new feature that you can look forward to in .NET 6. So we are running the latest preview bits here, and we're getting that nice hot reload experience.
Question, sir.
Yes.
Before you had this, what did you have to do? Like update the browser, or like update the view?
If you were really like looking very closely before I closed that last browser out and started this .NET Watch, there was a console that kept popping up every time I'd save and reloading the entire application for me. Now, it was happening automatically, but what it was doing is essentially refreshing this entire page, and you'd see the loading go every time it would do that. So it was kind of interrupting my workflow as I was trying to do this.
So I'm curious, like, I mean, the whole Blazor component architecture is similar to any other web component architecture, right? So like when we look at things like Webpack and how they update just one component that you have touched, why is this any different, or is it the same?
It's essentially the same idea. The only difference is we're working with compiled code, so it's a little bit trickier, and it's pretty amazing that Microsoft was able to pull this off. The ASP.NET team is pretty amazing, and they've got quite a nice workflow now that they've been able to do that.
Oh, and this is a WebAssembly project, is it?
Yes, this is WebAssembly.
This is
so we're using the latest and greatest WebAssembly stuff in the .NET 6 preview.
Gotcha.
So right now we're relying on Bootstrap, and let's say we want to create our own alert box component. So if we were to move it outside of our application, or if Bootstrap was to go away, the styling would still work with our component. So let's actually move this to its own component first, and we'll put it in a component package. So this is going to be something called a Razor class library. And let's go ahead and create one of those. I'm actually going to stop the .NET Watch for just a moment because things can get a little bit tricky if you're adding new projects to your solution and you've got that running. So we'll go ahead and stop that for a moment. And I'm going to come up to my solution, and I'm going to say add new project.
While that's spinning up, Ed, just real quick, I don't know, I'm going to butcher the name here. Data speaker? Data speaker? I don't know. Do you all like lead code? Okay, I'm lost here. What is lead code?
Yeah, I don't know what that is either. So
so maybe explain a little bit. Data speaker, if I'm saying your name right. Yeah.
Why can't I get at this draw box? There we go. So I'm going to pick the Razor class library template now. So this is a class library that is specific to Blazor or MVC applications. And I'm going to hit next, and we'll go ahead and name this. This is what I want to call my component library. And this can be named anything. So I'm going to call it custom component library, and then you'll notice a checkbox here at the bottom. You do not want to click that checkbox. Do not click that checkbox unless you're using MVC or Razor pages. That's what that checkbox is for, is to support those frameworks. We're using Blazor, we'll just leave that alone and not check it. So go ahead and click next. And this is going to stub out a component library package for us. So you can see this is our custom component library. It has an example for doing some JavaScript interop, which we're not going to talk about tonight. It's just a little bit out of scope. It has a sample component in it, an imports.razor, and a ww root folder where we'd put our static assets at. We're not going to be using any of those tonight. We're going to take out the ww root. This is if you have static images and things like that. We don't need that. We're going to create our own component here, and we don't need the interop either. So those are all just samples. You can think of those as like the class 1.cs of the Razor component universe. So let's go ahead and create a new component in here. So I'm going to right click on this and hit add, and I'm going to add a new item and select Razor component, and let's create an alert.
Okay, Ed.
Razor. Alertbox.razor. Yeah.
Dumb question here. Why did you have to make a different project? Because you want to export that thing out to another project if you needed to, like a
right.
Like
so
a DLL?
If I put all of my components in this class library, I can use them in other projects.
Gotcha.
It also keeps a nice kind of separation of concerns here. I've got all of my reusable UI components outside of my project. I can just focus on the main pages of the project and that sort of thing. You're either going to put them in a folder or you're going to put them in another library anyway. So I'm going to put them in another library so they're nice and portable if I want to use them in a future project.
So how would you make that portable, or is it already like a .NET standard library?
So if you want to make this portable, all you have to do is go to Properties, and you can come into the Package tab and click on Generate NuGet Package on Build. And it will generate a NuGet package, and you can share that on NuGet.org. You can share it on a private NuGet feed, or you can just share it in a folder.
The nupkeg that you get.
Yep. So we've got our custom component library. I just created an empty component here to hold our alert box. And then I'm going to take my div out of my index page and move it over here to my alert component. And then I need to take this component library and tell my application where to find it. So I'm going to right click on dependencies here and click add project reference. And I'm going to click on the custom component library and add that as a reference. If this was a NuGet package, I would just go to the same dependencies tab and do manage NuGet packages, and then I would add it through the NuGet package manager. So now I've got a reference to it in my project, and I want to come over to my imports here and just let Blazor know where that namespace is. Just bring that thing into scope. So I'm going to say using, what did I name that? It was custom component library. There it is. So now I've got a using statement, and I don't need to worry about bringing that in to any of my pages now. I can just come into my index.razor and say alert box, and there's my alert box. So I'm going to save that. Let's go ahead and get our build pipeline back up. So I'm going to go back over, oops, I already have it here, over to PowerShell, say .NET Watch again, and this should reload the application. And I need to do a proper build first. And then it should start working. So that DLL hadn't been built yet. So, So let's see. It's giving me a little fit here. Let's try cleaning the solution again. It's lost a reference to something, I believe.
It's
And
Monday for Visual Studio as well.
These are preview bits as well. So there it says build succeeded. Sometimes Visual Studio doesn't want to let go of resources that it is holding on to.
So our good friend Alyssa Nichol, who's on the show, on the stream, or on this channel quite a lot, she's getting into the Windows side of things, and I gave her a golden tip that in Windows, like you just stop and restart things. Sometimes you stop and restart Visual Studio. Sometimes you just stop and restart Windows, and things just start working.
So now we've got our alert box on our index page, but it still has that static content in there. So we want to use properties to control our components and give them some dynamic input. So a parameter in Blazor is a public property that can affect the component's rendering, handle event delegation, feed it data, that sort of thing. And a parameter is a attribute that we add to a public property that sits on our component, and then we can pass in values to that parameter. So one of the things that we have with our component is let's bring up the rendering again. We have some static content. We also have this alert box that's in this kind of like danger mode. And we want to be able to change the different types of alert box. So let's work on some of these. So I'm going to say code here, and that's going to give me a code block where I can add some logic to my application. Remember, there's 3 major building blocks of a component. We've got directives, markup, and our logic. So I'm going to add some logic here, and I want a parameter. And that parameter is going to be a public, I don't know if I can do... No. So some of the IntelliSense is broken in the current version of Visual Studio, so I can't do prop double tab. I have to type all of these out. So it's going to be public property, a string, and this is going to be CSS class, and this is going to be a custom CSS class. So we'll give it a getter and a setter. And we'll also give this a default. Let's go ahead and default this one to alert. Alert-danger. And then we'll save that.
Oh, so the other project also has Bootstrap?
So right now, the main project has Bootstrap. And our component library, if we were to consume this in a project that does not have Bootstrap, it will not show the proper CSS values here.
But the Blazor one has it.
The Blazor one has it. We're going to fix that in just a minute.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to go up here and tell the component to render the CSS class value in line with the class attribute. So we'll get class alert and then go ahead and just concatenate in the CSS class there. And now if I go back to my index page, I can come into the alert and say CSS class equals alert-info. And when I save that, it's being a little bit extra tonight. Sure, it's telling me this was a destructive change and I need to restart the app for that to show up.
How dare you change the CSS class?
Which I didn't think that was. And it's still... This is what I get for going with the beta bits.
Yeah, hot bits.
Doesn't have a property named... Yes, it does. So let's do a recompile here.
So while you're doing that, I don't know if this is tied to what you're showing, but Silly Queen X was asking state of CSS animations. Again, I don't think I understand the question here, so feel free to clarify, Silly Queens. And here's my question. The property that you're adding as a parameter, can it be anything? Like, can you like typecast something? Can it be an object?
Yeah. It can be an object. It can be a delegate. It can be pretty much anything. Okay. As long as the compiler lets go of whatever resources it's holding onto. And
You're
hot
brave.
Reload is failing me today.
I don't even try this stuff in the latest Visual Studio. I go straight up CLI.
It keeps saying that I did not add a property. It builds on the command line. This is that thing I was telling you about where .NET, there's 2 different versions of the compiler running. One in the... oh, come on. Are you serious here? It keeps saying that there is no public property named alert box. Did I not make it public? Public string.
Do you do kill the app? Because like you have two tabs open. The Blazor Artisan, yeah. Maybe you're looking at the different one.
Let's try that again. Here, I'll just do a quick. No, it's still.
Oh wait. CSS class is misspelled. Does it need to be?
Oh, is that what I did? Did I spell something wrong? CSS class. CSS class. Oh, it was missing an S at the end. Thank you.
Well, why would it build? Yeah, thank you, Logo.
I should have gotten an error here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hotbits. Right.
The new Razor engine that is in this version of .NET is giving me some trouble. Meanwhile, there's insects flying at me too while I'm trying to talk, and it's stuck in limbo. So Visual Studio is hung, essentially. This is what I get for using previews. I was trying to make things a little more interesting here, and I think I've accomplished that.
Ed, go ahead and hit the little hide button. My OCD is going to bother me until you do.
Yeah, it keeps popping up every time I have to shut these windows down and bring them back up. So let's try this again. We're going to do open in terminal. .NET Watch. And we're back. All right, there's our alert info. So now I can come to my component, and I can change this to, let's see, what are some of the other ones that we have? Warning, is it? These are all Bootstrap. It's really testing me now. Oh,
wait, what?
The tab just crashed, and it's
in
not
Visual Studio.
It's having a Monday.
Yeah. Well, the info showed up just fine. No, it's just still hung up on info. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's having a lot of fun with me tonight. Okay. So it's gonna play games with me now. So I might ditch the hot reload, even though that is one of the things that you're supposed to be looking forward to in .NET 6.
Not quite ready yet.
It is not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Let's give it one last try.
We get the point. You can set parameters on each component. There it is. Picks up.
Yeah, we should be able to show it this easy, though. Info. If this one fails, then I'm just going to give up on hot reloading altogether. Hot reload changes succeeded, and it did not do so.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get rid of hot reloading because it does not work.
Okay, just refresh the browser. How difficult is it?
Yeah, we're not going to do hot reloading in this session. It's just it's not working out. So I'm going to hit Control F5, and we should be able to just reload that. You'll see this window coming up from time to time as we reload this, and there's our info, and then just to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do, you see it rebuilding in the background. The window pops up, and we have... Yep. That's fine. As long as it's working, we can move forward now. So we talked about Bootstrap for one. Let's make sure our component works outside of Bootstrap and give it its own CSS. So I'm going to hit Add again. I'm going to hit New Item. And we're going to call this one alertbox.razor.css. And this is going to be the CSS code in it. It mistakenly named it alertbox razor.razor. Thank you, Visual Studio, for the extra help, but that is not what I asked for. CSS is what I wanted. So alertbox.razor.css, This is going to be our CSS file for our component.
Okay, I have a question. And this is a trick that you had showed me back when we were getting started with Blazor. This whole, like, your localhost really doesn't like you now. But this whole idea of putting the code with the markup isn't always the most like clear architecture. So you had showed me that you can easily move that code off to a different file, just like razor.cs. So and that's going to work fine if you have a .css as well.
Yep. So if you look here, we've got our alert box.razor, and then the naming convention is the same here. It's the component name, the razor suffix, and then we're going to put CSS on the end of that.
Okay.
Notice how they nest together. That makes makes it so you can see that they belong all together there.
Yeah.
So
Could you make an alert box.razor.cs and move that code thing off to the other file? Make it a partial class?
I don't know if I want to do that yet.
It might mess up since everything is
it might
beta.
mess some things up. We're not quite ready for that yet. That's in. We'll do that in just a little bit. That's one of the last things that we're going to do. Okay. So what Sam's talking about is putting this in a code behind file, and it will look very similar to what we just did here. For now, what we want to do is provide some CSS for this. And I'm going to use the same namespace that Bootstrap is using. So I'm going to go ahead and put this alert danger, info, and error in here, and I'm going to save that. And now our component has its own isolated version of this CSS. And what's going to happen here is when we run our application again, it's going to look a little bit different. So this is using my custom style, and it's taking precedence over that Bootstrap. So if I were to take this component and move it to another project that doesn't have Bootstrap, it'll still work just fine. And if I put it in a component library that has CSS with the same CSS selectors, mine will take precedence over those. And the way it's doing that, if we zoom in here and take a look at what is in the actual DOM rendering, I've got this little attribute here that Blazor has added for me. So this B dash and this kind of like a GUID type of a number here is a very specific CSS selector that was generated by Blazor to ensure that our component gets the style added to it that we assigned. So it's very, very high specificity, so nothing else can really override that CSS. So you want to use this you want to use this type of thing if you don't want people to change the look and style of your components. If you do want people to change the style of your components, you want to use kind of the old-fashioned just CSS link like you have with Bootstrap. If I go to my index file here, you can see I have a app.css or a bootstrap.min.css. You would add a CSS file like that can be overridden like any normal CSS can. This alert.razor.css gets special treatment because it is an isolated version of that CSS.
Yeah. You're kind of forcing it in. And I mean, if you're making like a design system and you want everybody who's using that component all throughout your company or your app to be having that same look and feel, like this is nice.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So some people like that. I prefer using Sass myself, but I wanted to show off the feature since it's something that came in .NET 5 and people ask about it pretty frequently.
So Ed, before you jump into that, this may be kind of going off track, but I just wanted to respond to something that chat room is asking. I don't know if you knew real quick, but Silly Queens is asking about CSS animations, and if you have stuff in Blazor, like what's the preferred way of knowing that something is done and you want to get back to triggering some C# code? Do you know offhand?
Yeah. So that one's a tough one. CSS animations do work. However, Blazor doesn't have any way to tie into, there's no event system to tell it when the animations are finished. So you would have to actually write some sort of JavaScript interop to do that, because there's no way to do it outside of or inside of Blazor. You can get away with a lot of CSS animation without it. The times that it is going to give you trouble is when you're trying to hide things or show things after a given like a animation time. Just because they don't have any way to, there's no way to trigger those type of things. So let's see if we can get some sort of example here. If we had like this sidebar, if we wanted to animate this, I've been successful at animating it to open. So you can animate this as it opens. Animating it to close, however, is a different story because it has to hide the content after it shuts. And what ends up happening is when you change the class to tell it to animate to close, Blazor just it goes ahead and removes the element from the DOM, and you never see the animation play. So that's when you run into that problem where you need an event to kick off and let the animation play out, and then when the animation is finished, tell Blazor to go ahead and remove the elements from the DOM. Otherwise, there's no way to tell when that happens, and it looks just like it is now, where it just opens and closes instantaneously. That's very tricky to do with CSS animation. So JavaScript interop is one way to work around that. You'd have to hook events into the DOM to let it know when those items are ready to be removed. All right, so we've got our CSS isolated, so we can close that now. We're able to change the CSS class by using this input here, but we don't have any content like area available. I can't say span something custom here inside of my alert box, and that's kind of not very useful. So it's just got static content, and notice when I put that text there, it broke, and it says in the error message here, the object of type alert box does not have a property matching child content. So it's telling me that my component doesn't have support for child content. So what we're going to do is go back to our alert box, and I'll put these side by side so we can see what we're doing here. And what I want to do is enable some child content on that component, and we'll do that again through a parameter. And we have a special parameter that we're going to use here. And this parameter is a render fragment. So render fragment and child content. Render fragment is a parameter that defines a template region. So render fragment is a fragment of Blazor content. So HTML, CSS, or other HTML, Razor, or other Razor components can go into a render fragment. And that looks like this. We're going to create a parameter and set it to a render fragment, and then call it child content. And I'll explain what child content means. So we'll do public render fragment, child content, and we need to set it and get it, and we'll save.
What is the use case for this?
So now we have the static content here, Sam. You're asking what the use case is. This is exactly what the use case is. Child content goes up here in place of our static content. Now if we go back to our app, it says custom text. So we can put anything we want now. This is now a template region in our component, and we can put anything we want in here.
No, I get that, but I was trying to think of like one step back. Like this is a repeatable Blazor component that you want to stick everything in there as is, as you are using it in every one of your views. But now you are letting the user or the host app kind of control what you insert into the DOM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
now we
I
can.
suppose there could be need for that.
Well, this is an alert component, and now we can give it a title and text, and we can format the inner part of that component however we'd like. This is just the basic building blocks of any component, no matter how detailed we want to get. For example, if we had an HTML table like this, then like we do at Telerik, we have instead of just one child content, which I can show you, we have template rows, template columns, template fields, like each cell can be a template. And we can totally customize these and put charts inside of them and put images and make really robust data grids because it uses the same type of system that I'm showing you here. So these are the building blocks. Right now we're doing something very simple with it and just creating an outer shell that basically provides some styling. But these can be much more interactive, larger components once you learn these basic concepts. So in this one, we have child content. Child content is a convention that gives me a template region that is the only child of the parent component. So if I wanted to have multiple of these, I can't very well say child content multiple times because that is a property called child content. We can't have duplicate properties. So what essentially is happening here is by convention, since there's only one child content, it understands that it's implicitly understood that I don't have to type it out. But what it's actually doing is this. So there is an HTML tag called child content that we don't need to type. So if I had multiple of these, say I had like a header and a footer or something like that, I could actually name these and say header and like duplicate this one, and I could say I could call it content template. You can name these whatever you want, and that reload is so annoying. And then I could say header here. And
you're still calling it child content up there in the.
Oh yes, I need to replace those. Thank you. But notice the IntelliSense here. It's going to pick these up and let me use those. And then we would place the names wherever I'd like these to go. So I'd have my header, and then I might have some sort of wrapper in here and say content template. I might wrap this one in a head tag, a header tag, for example. And I can form these template regions within my component. And like I was saying earlier, am I misspelling something again? There it goes. Like I was saying earlier with the data grid example, in the Telerik UI components, we have row templates and editor templates and header and footer templates, all sort of templates that are all render fragments that are within our components that you can insert your own HTML and your own components inside of and make the outer or the guts of the component behave differently depending on what you need to do with it. So now we've got the capability to do that, which I'm going to actually backtrack a little bit here and remove it because it's a little out of scope for what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to change that back, and we'll make this a child content again. We're going to expand upon this a little bit more. But I just wanted to show that it is capable of doing multiple template regions, and they're all just render fragments at that point. There's another type of render fragment we're going to be using in just a little bit. So that was render fragment. Let's look at attribute splatting next. This is an interesting concept. So right now we're using CSS class, and it's a property. It's a property, a parameter explicitly written out as a property on our component. But what if we wanted to have other HTML attributes like ID and give this an ID for some reason? We want to add that, or maybe the ID is helping support some sort of end-to-end testing solution like Telerik UI for Blazor or Selenium or something, or not Telerik UI, Telerik Test Studio or Selenium, something like that. So if we wanted to add some sort of HTML attribute here, like ID, or use the HTML attribute of class, for example, instead of a custom property like this one, if we try to run this, let's see there, it's reloading. See this error that we get here. And the error says that the alert box does not have a property matching the name ID. So what Blazor is going to do, if we give it an HTML attribute, is it's going to assume that we're trying to use a property that hasn't been declared. So I can't just throw any kind of HTML attributes in here, but I may want to do that. There's very good reasons for this. So what I can do next is use something called attribute splatting, and this is going to let me take any HTML or any custom attribute and capture it and use that wherever I'd like. So I've got a new parameter that's going to have a value called capture unmatched values to true. So if it goes into the component and it doesn't find a property with that matching name, it will add it to a dictionary and let me collect those values so I can use them as I like. So that's what we're going to add to our component next. So I'm going to create a new property, and I'm going to copy and paste it off of a clipboard because it's rather long. I'm not going to type that all out. I'm going to replace my CSS class because we're not going to need that with the attribute splatting here. So I've got a new parameter. It's capturing the unmatched values. So if there is something that doesn't match a parameter name, it will go ahead and put it in the collection of additional attributes. And now I don't need this alert class declaration up here anymore. And I'm going to default this one to alert danger. So there's actually going to be a little problem with this, and it's intentional. So bear with me for just a second. And what I want to do is I want to take the additional attributes and render these out in my div tag. So I'm going to append these to my div. And what I don't have is the ability to kind of concatenate the CSS class that I'm using, just the standard HTML CSS class, with my own like I had before. So that isn't going to work. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And I want to show you this because it's really a powerful tool, but you have to kind of finesse things a little bit. So we've got no styling now because we took that CSS portion of it off. But we do have the ID of custom ID that's been appended to that HTML. And you can see we've even got our CSS class property that I never took off of the index page. So if I go back over to my index page here, you can see it's still accepting that, even though it's not a valid property anymore, because it's capturing the unmatched values. So I can say class equals alert danger, hit save again, and now I'm passing that CSS class down to my component, and I'm telling it where to render that CSS class at. So if I look at my component, this at attributes is where it is inserting those class and ID and any other type of attribute that I want to add here. So if I wanted to say disabled, I could do that. Anything that's a valid attribute or even custom attributes can be passed down to my component now. And through this directive, this attributes directive, I can tell it where to render those out. There's a couple tricks with this as well. So if I were to declare a class before, or an attribute before the attributes collection, it will take precedence over it. And if I put it after, there's a little bit of a convention here. If I put it after, then it will not override what follows. So if I put it before, it will overwrite it. If I put it after, it will not overwrite it. But what if I want to merge those things together? What if I want to merge a custom class so I don't have to keep the user to typing the full name of the CSS class out, and I could leave it open to where they can choose alert danger, alert info, but I can concatenate that alert on automatically.
So Ed, hold that thought for just 1 second. Folks, if you're watching on Twitch and if you're just joining us, this is a user group talk, and Mr. Ed Charbeneau is talking us through becoming a Blazor Component Artisan and the things you need to keep in mind. And I think you answered this, but G. Shonia, who's actually a regular at our user group, what's the role of the attributes markup? I think that's what you just said. It's to... Okay, say that one more time. What is the role of the attributes markup?
Yeah, so there is a parameter here called additional attributes. And the attributes tells Blazor, this is where I want to render this collection of captured attributes. So when the user of the component puts in anything, ID, disabled, aria, any of those attributes, they get passed on to where this attributes is and rendered as inline attributes within the HTML here. So we're giving our component the capability to accept arbitrary HTML attributes is what we're doing. And this can be very handy. And what I'm about to show here is a tool that I created to help with this. And it's going to make using CSS with our component a whole lot easier. So I've got a tool that I wrote for doing I'm trying to think of the name of the convention here. It's dynamic like CSS values. And I'm bringing in a package here called Blazor Component Utilities. And you can find this on NuGet. It's free to use. And Blazor Component Utilities has a utility in it to merge these attributes with our own values. So we can get back that functionality of using a CSS class property with our component.
So I think this is what G. Shonia was trying to ask, and maybe your tool brings it back. So you could do just add additional properties.
Let me take a look. So no, that won't do it. You need the attributes because this is how Blazor. So if I did just additional attributes, this is a read-only dictionary of string and object, and it will be treated as such. The attributes tells the framework to take that dictionary and create the text that is displayed within, or the rendered div. So additional attributes would be very literal and say, give me an read-only dictionary, and it will basically do a toString on it, which isn't going to give you anything useful. It's going to be something like, it'll give you like read-only like dictionary. Like this would be the actual text that would come out, and it would be, it doesn't do brackets. It'd be like string of object. It'd be a whole bunch of just nonsense that the browser wouldn't understand. The attributes takes that value and interprets it as HTML. So you do need that. What I want to do is allow the user to use the class tag here and then merge in some of my own, merge in the alert and let them focus on what version of that alert that they want to use. So I'm going to paste in a little bit of code here, and this uses my utility package, and it is going to create a CSS Builder, which is part of that component pack, or that utility package. And let's stop the running thing in the background. I think it's giving this some fits here. There is a reference type, which is referenced right here. So this preview of Visual Studio is still giving me some problems, I think. Let's try a build here. See if that does it. Could not be found. Oh, I need to add the package here. Manage NuGet packages. I added it to the wrong project is what I did. So I need Blazor Component Utilities and add that package. And those errors should go away. There we go. Now I'm also going to add a disabled flag to this as well. So I've got this CSS Builder, and what it's going to do is new up a new alert piece of CSS. Sorry, there's a bug trying to fly in my mouth as I talk. The things you run into on live streaming, am I right? So by default, it's going to have the CSS value of alert, and then we're going to add a class called alert dark when the disabled flag is set. So we need to add that disabled flag. So parameter, we'll do public bool disabled. And then that should take care of that. And then after that, we're going to just go ahead and merge in any additional attributes that the user passed in. If it finds a CSS attribute, it's going to inline it with the alert. So I've got a utility now that's going to merge these together. And now I can concatenate any of the incoming CSS together. And I'm going to go ahead and write those out this time because I want to make sure I get my value that's been concatenated with it. So now I've got any additional attributes the user put in, and then I'm also going to write out the CSS class that I've appended down here to any custom values that the user passed in. So now I should be able to go to my index page, and I can just say alert danger. I can put any kind of custom HTML attributes here as well. And I've still got an error somewhere. I've got a package reference in here that needs to be taken out. I said earlier, I added it to the wrong
I mean, at least project. It was pretty clear what we had to do.
Yeah. So now you can see I've got my running app on this side. I'm not saying alert danger, but it's getting both of those values because it's merging the attribute that I'm passing in. It's adding the alert to the alert danger for me and rendering it in the correct location. So you can see here I've got my ID, I've got my class as alert danger. If I were to come back over here and say info, so now I don't have a custom like CSS class property. I'm actually just using the HTML syntax here, and it's still behaving the way I want it to. You can see it turned blue up here. So it's creating the correct CSS now. So now I've got an alert box that uses the standard CSS terminology. but it's still acting as if it's a custom property. So I've just expanded that component to be a little bit more flexible and allow users to use HTML attributes with it, because I used the attribute splatting technology that's in Blazor. So the last thing I want to talk about is generic templates. We'll talk about this and then we'll do a little wrap up here. So I've got an alert box. What I really like to do is do some data binding. So one thing that I could do just kind of generically is I could say for each, and I've got a data service here that I've plumbed in already. You can see on line 3, inject logger service of logger. I could say var log in logger dot log items, and I could write these out. And let's go ahead and throw this in like an unordered list or something. I want to show you how to build data binding components here. So at log.message, and this is going to render all of the log items messages in the view.
Well, where are you logging it, and what service are you using?
So this is just a fake service that is creating random content. So it's creating 25 lorem ipsum log messages. So it's a real service, but the plumbing is fake. So it's just for demo purposes. If I were to go into logger service, it's just going to be a little randomization code. So go services, log service.
Oh, there it is.
So it's generating random data and returning a list of log items. So it's giving me lorem ipsum here. So these are fake, but it's just for demo purposes. We want to be able to show that we can take this could be any type of data service that we want. We're going to go ahead and put those in an unordered list and write the messages out. And there's other values in here as well. So we could even write out log.id. We'll just put a little hyphen in there. And we'll also do log dot level. There's a level here as well. So we can see all the different data points in here. We'll just go ahead and render those out. So we've got 1 through 20, or 0 through 24, and then we've got error, critical, information, debug, and so on. So what I'd like to do is create an alert list that I can bind to, and it will give me a list of alert boxes, and then we can assign the levels to different colors to make them, orange, red, or blue, depending on the level they are, and so on. And I want something that can be templatable as well. So I have the ability here to assign whatever type of HTML I want to render in the alert box. I don't want to lose that functionality when I create my template or my alert list. One thing I could do that's just kind of very easy and ad hoc is I could just take this and I could remove my unordered lists, and I could just specify like an ID here, and I could take my message and put it here, and my alert level, I'd have to do something to make the correct CSS happen. We won't worry about that quite yet, but essentially this will work. But this isn't the best developer experience. This isn't something that I can just ship very easily and allow somebody to data bind to. They'd have to write this for each loop every time they want to use an alert list. So let's make an alert list that actually has a nice developer experience to it. Something that we can say like alert, this thing running is going to annoy me, alert list, and then say like data equals, and then just assign whatever our data is here and let the alert list handle the rendering for us, unless we specify a template. So Blazor has that stuff built into it, and that is called generic templating. And this still uses our render fragment, but it uses a special version of the render fragment. It uses something called the type parameter of tItem and a render fragment of tItem. So you don't have to watch me type all of this out. We're going to go ahead and copy paste some code again. So now I'm going to take and create another component in my library here. We'll say add a new item. We'll do Razor component, and this is going to be an alert list. And we'll actually build upon our existing alert box. And we have a type parameter. So essentially what this is creating with the type parameter, and it's not going to give me comments, it is a alert list of tItem. That is what this type parameter is specifying. It's telling me I have an alert list, but it's of tItem. So I've just made a generic class called alert list by doing that. And then I'm going to for each over some collection of items and render an alert box. And then I have this at item template, and it's accepting those items as they come into the loop. So let's look at the code here. I've got a render fragment of t called item template. That's this here. Let's do some annotations while we talk about this. So, oops, wrong button. My item template is here. And then my items, I have a read-only list. This could be any type of .NET list that you'd like to use. So this could be an IEnumerable. It could be a list of items. It could be any kind of collection you'd like. But those get fed into that item template. So the item template renders each of these items as they come in. So now it's got data binding built in. And we should be able to go back to our index page. And instead of writing a for each loop around it like this, now, and I'll keep these separate. We'll leave our original alert box there so we can see the difference. We should have an alert list. I think I have to recompile for it to show up. There we go. So we have an alert list, and it has an items property to it. And we could say the items are logger dot log items. And then we need to specify a template. So we need to tell it exactly what we want it to do with these log items. So Blazor uses a concept here called context. Because this is generic, it doesn't really have a name for what these log items are. We know because we're the ones that are assigning log items that there are log items. But in here, they're generic. It doesn't really know what those items are. So in the item template, we need to tell it to render the context dot, and we'll get IntelliSense here, and you'll see we have our log item ID, level, and message, just like I showed you before. So we'll go ahead and display a message here, and then we'll go ahead and run the app so you can see what that looks like. And of course, it has build errors. Log does not exist in the current context. Where did it see log? The name log does not exist in the current context.
Is it in the alert box? Like,
oh, did I did it. I left it up there.
yeah.
Thank you, Sam. I was focused on the code below. We'll go ahead and just leave those as just plain text like that. Even though they say log ID, it should be fine now. All right. So now we've got our data binding, and you can see we've data bound that list there. We didn't have to write a for each loop. We just told it that the items are this and the template is here. Now, we can tell it that the context is a log, and we can remove this here and say log instead. So we're telling it what the context is. We're going to name it log, and that is going to work exactly the same. It's just a nice little bit of syntactic sugar there to make the code easier to read, so we don't have the word context all over the place.
So quick pause before you move on. Our good friend Curious Drive is here. Hello.
Hey, Curious Drive.
Yeah, we are actually doing a special stream here. This is a user group talk, and we have probably another maybe 5 minutes ahead. Then we should hop on to the Teams call so we can hang out. But Curious Drive, we are talking Blazor. Ed is talking about Blazor components. Is blazing a verb now? I didn't know this. I didn't get the memo, but apparently it is. Okay, so we are blazing. And G. Shoni is asking, is there an online place, like a marketplace, to get free Blazor components?
Free Blazor components. There are some free libraries out there. You're going to find, your mileage is going to vary on what you find for how complete they are. They're good starting points to get going. The Telerik UI stuff is not free, but you're going to find that it's supported and has a lot more features than you'll find in the free stuff. So there's a little bit of like onboarding experience there where you can write your own, and then you can get some free stuff. But when you go to like build some bigger production things, it's helpful to have something like Telerik UI for Blazor, where you have very rich components with lots of features and support to help you when you get stuck on something. But great question there. So I'm just extending this out. We can still answer questions. I'm just trying to get this to a better state here so we can move to the next segment. We have any other questions here, Sam?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Let's see. So I'm not trying to open Visual Studio Code. I just added the ID so we could see the ID of these items. And what I want to do next is show how we can add a delete button to these items. So I get this question a lot, and the question is, if I have a list of items, how do I let the component delete items from the list? And the answer is you actually don't want the component to delete items from the list and like keep a count and all of that stuff. Instead, what you want to do is you let the components tell you what is happening in the events and then handle the events yourself. So we already have the list of items here. We could say logger, log items, and count. We can keep a count of those items. So I'll save that. We already have that coming in from our service, and we just call the count method on it. You can see we have 25 items in the list. And then if we go back here, we're going to add a delete button to our alert list and let it handle the deleting of items. I'm going to paste this in so we don't have to go through typing it all out. But again, I have my for each loop. It's iterating over an alert box. And it says if on delete has delegate, it's going to go ahead and render a button. And it's got an on click event that says handle delete, and it passes in the item that was iterated upon when that button was rendered. And then I also have my template here below, so it's going to append this button to the template. Now I've added two properties here. This one is a special class called event callback of tItem, and it is called on delete. And then when I click the delete button, this handle delete gets raised, and it calls the on delete delegate here and invokes it with the item that it is returning from the event callback. So event callback is a special delegate for Blazor that tells the component that an event has happened and it needs to re-render the component. So if an item gets deleted because of this callback, then the list will re-render with less items in it. If I didn't use event callback and I used something like action, the the number of items would in memory would be less, but they would still all be rendered on the page, and it would still be a count of 25 because we haven't re-rendered the component. So that is what event callback is going to handle for us. So we've got a new parameter called event callback and a delegate to raise that handler. So in our index page now, we need to actually use that that parameter. So in here, I should have on delete now. That came from that parameter I added. And I just need to delegate what happens when we delete an item. So I need a code block here at code. We'll put that inside. And then we're going to say logs, log items, remove, and we're going to remove that log item from it. And we'll go ahead and use that delete item delegate there. And I've got some errors here. Let's kill this process again and see what it's complaining about. This is a very common error, and I wanted to point this out. That's why I left this in this example. We have method group cannot be assigned to event callback. So what this is doing is there's a little mismatch here. It can't implicitly infer the type because this is a generic list. So we've got T item here. The event callback is of T item, but the compiler doesn't know what to do with this because we have a logger assigned to it, and it's got T item as the type. What we need to do is just specify here that T item is a log item. If we do that, that error is going to go away. So now it knows when I'm binding this, it is a log item. T item is equal to a log item, and it can automatically assign that to the delegate so it can resolve the parameter here. And I should be able to run this, and no, it's going to give me another error. Logs does not exist in current context. I need to, let's see, I called it logger. Log items remove. There we go. Now we're good.
While it's building, well, I'll let you run this.
So you can see we've got 25 up here. If I click this, it's going to count down. There's our delete button. So now we've got interactive components.
Nice. Yeah, this is good. Now, Silly Queenix, I don't know if you come from like a .NET XAML background, which is where I come from. Observable Collections will do some of that binding for you, but I think this is a different game, right? I mean, you're literally making a component that you can use across any part of your app and across different apps as well. So this is where what you pass into the component is important and how you handle that.
Yeah, observable collections would be handy here if there was something deleting the items outside the scope of the alert list itself. So if there was like maybe a queue that was running, like a timer that was deleting items after 20 minutes or something, then we'd need to have to either tell Blazor to render the component after that timer goes off using something called state has changed, or we could use an observable collection which does essentially that internally. So we could build that into our component, and actually the Teller UI for Blazor Data Grid has an observable collection built into it. So you can just assign an observable to it, and if it changes, new data comes in, or a service picks up items, add and removes items, it will actually just automatically update the data grid without you needing to explicitly tell it to.
Yeah.
So that's a good one.
Our good friend Curious Drive is asking me a direct question. I am tinkering Curious Drive. I skim through the surface of Blazor. I get to the exciting parts, but I don't get deeper Like I don't get much like skin deep like what Ed is doing here. This is hardcore stuff. I don't understand all of this, but yeah. Otherwise, Blazor is easy to get started with.
So I'm going to add one last thing before we go here. And this gets into functional programming a little bit. This one's a little bit of an advanced idea. But I want to take my alert list, and notice we have a solid color here of orange. They're all the same item, or all the same class. And on my alert box, my singular version, not my data-bound version, I can just say class equals alert info here, and I can change the style of it. But when I'm on a list of items, I should be able to tell it per item what to style that as. And I can't really do that because I have this weird concept here where I'm inside of a list, a repeating list, and I need to specify for each individual item what I'd like to style those as. So I've kind of lost scope of that. So I added something called Css Map. And Css Map's going to work similar to the way that item template does. Every time I iterate, I'm going to pass the item to a function. Now, CSS Map is a function that takes TItem and returns a string. Now, by default, I'm just going to throw away TItem and return alert danger. So that's my default. On my index, what I can do is specify a delegate here to map in what I want that class value to be. So I have something called CSS Map. It takes a log item. It performs a switch on it. So I take item.level. If it's a warning, I'm going to make it alert warning. If it's critical, I'm going to make it alert danger. If it's error, it's going to be a danger. Anything else, I'm going to throw that away and return alert info. So now on my alert list, I have a property called CSS Map, and the delegate is also called CSS Map. So it's going to run this delegate for every item and map its log level to the CSS class. And now if I go back and run this again, I got an error again. Log level does not exist in the current context. I'm not sure why it's doing that. I have my item level. I think it's a using statement. Using log data. I have a log data item here. Log level. It should know what log level is. Unless there's a syntax error in here somewhere. All right. So it looks like,
or no?
Yeah, it might need to be cleaned. Clean succeeded.
The magical clean.
I should not do this in .NET 6. I think this is, oh jeez. Yeah, it's got all kinds of phony errors. These are not real errors.
Yeah, I mean, we get the point. Like you're trying to get inside the template and have a switch drive how it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Loka Samasta Sukino Bhavantus. Yeah, I said your name right, I hope. Do you need to encapsulate CSS Map in curly braces?
No, it shouldn't have to be. This
is
is
a function, right?
Yeah, this is a basic switch inside of Lambda. This is essentially doing this and saying return. The compiler's not being nice tonight. Return. Deleted that wrong. Yeah, like that. Return, switch. I don't know why it's saying it doesn't know what log level is, though. That's...
Rebuild. No, yeah, you got something else going on.
Yeah, it's gone nuts. So let's try something a little more basic here. So all this has to do is take an item and return something as a string. So we can say alert-info and just change all of them to an alert info. Let's see if it compiles that. I think I'm getting a lot of false negatives on this. These are not normal errors. Like you can see, builder is used like a type. You must provide an initial. This is all just gibberish. That you know what? Let me try this one. Let's kill the process. It's probably hanging a resource. Blazor does not normally perform like this. I think I need to take the preview bits out of this this session just so I don't run into this kind of weirdness. This is not a good representation of how Blazor normally performs. So it is hanging on to values. Or you can see it regenerating classes on the fly there. It is not supposed to be doing that. I'm not running this right now. So I think we should probably just do some quick Q&A here. Even that, like red squiggly just sitting off the end there is not normal. No, that's not going to work. All right, so
No,
let's
we get the point.
Let's move on. That would essentially just color all of the items per their log level instead of them all being just one color. So we'll take that out because it's not happy with it.
Okay, so let me ask you this: like you rattled through what, like 7 or 8 different types of ways in which you can use components and set properties, and you can do templating. Loga is saying you now have using at the top without a namespace.
I had it using at the top without a namespace? Oh, where did that come from?
You probably started writing something.
Oh,
or maybe that was it.
I was starting writing something while I was trying to fix that.
Yeah.
So that could have been it.
Well, then just return that alert info. Just see if it just likes that. Or you want to go back to what it was? All right.
This should be fine here. This was pasted in from a working copy, so that should work. Let's take out that using. It kept saying it didn't know what log level was, which makes no sense because it's just a property. A namespace directly contains. That's the thing being stuck again.
Yeah.
There's clean solution. Rebuild solution. This is what I get for using beta bits. No,
it's all right. We get it. Yeah.
It's not letting go of that error at all. What we can do here. We'll take questions while I see if I can get this to go off the command line.
Okay,
Visual Studio's going nuts.
Where can we find more info about the nuances of using Blazor components and how you build them?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So we've got a free ebook. And you can get this beginner's guide. We'll paste that in chat. And there we go. This ebook is an ebook that I wrote for Progress, and it has examples very similar to the one that I just did. It will show you how to build like a weather component and put it in a weather list component, delete items from it. It tells you about how Blazor handles rendering, the basics that make up a Blazor component or a Blazor application. There is a section on Blazor server, which gives you server-side rendering. It's about 100 pages, and it's a pretty short read, but it'll get you up and ready to go in developing on Blazor. So give that a check. There's also samples for that as well. That should be linked in the book, but if you don't see them there, you can do a quick search again. Those are up on GitHub. Let me share those as well, because I don't remember if there's where the link is in the book. So I have a GitHub project with all of the book examples as well. And that also has a link to the book in it. So all the examples that are in the book, you can run those. And there's some videos as well that I did on the ebook.
Cool. Very cool. Do you have a wrap-up slide or your contact info anywhere?
I do. So let's see here. Actually, I put, So if you go to my website at charbeneau.com, there is a link there as well to the ebook. There's a link to my GitHub, Twitter, and Twitch, all on my website. So if you just visit my website, you can get all of my info. And then, of course, visit blogs.telerik.com. Sam and I blog there a lot. Sam's got some great Maui posts on there as of late, so make sure you check those out.
All right. Yeah, very cool. No, and this is as real as it gets. You're playing with hot bits and trying to show.
I'm getting burned by hot bits tonight.
It's all good. This is what living on the bleeding edge looks like. So thank you so much for taking the time out to talk Blazor components to us. And folks in the chat room, thank you for hanging out with us and asking questions. It is getting a little late, so this is the time where we kind of hop off and hang on to Teams. I can still do that just to see if anybody is still there. We can have a quick chat, but it's probably late dinner time for most of you. Yeah, Loka, thank you so much for hanging out. I think you were very instrumental in fixing some errors up front.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. Yep, G. Shania. Gotta go, I understand, and thank you all. So, City Queens, thanks for the questions. So I think, Ed, we're going to skip the Teams thing. I think it's late, but we were here for you to show us all the components and the stuff working. So this is why we're here.
Yep. Sorry about all the technical difficulties, but I was trying to make things a little bit interesting with .NET 6, and it got the best of me this time.
So Noah is still here. Noah, I don't know if you want to just hop onto Teams. I might just still just to see if there's anybody else out there. The tech difficulties were a part of it, because that's what we're here. It's real. We're developers. Okay, folks, that's it from us on the broadcast, and we'll hang out a little bit offline. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ed, so much, and we shall see you on the third Monday for this user group next month. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, and that's it from us. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.